So here we are for another week, everything EOS. We have some pretty exciting news if you didn't already catch it on Twitter, which is that Brendan Bloomer has agreed, Brendan Bloomer, the CEO of Block.One, who makes the EOS.io software, he's agreed to come on this podcast, come on Everything EOS, answer questions from the community, talk about their upcoming proposal that they're going to release, which we're going to talk about in here a little bit. But a sincere thank you to everyone out there that tweeted him, that liked our post, inviting him to come on. We couldn't have done it without your support. So sincerely, thank you. We're both looking forward to the show, and it should be a pretty good episode.
So how crazy was that though, Rob? Like we recorded this show last Wednesday, and we were basically talking directly to the camera like we were talking to Block.One, and basically saying like we want to have this conversation because your offer to Brendan to come on was getting so much attention online. And then before we even could get the video edited and uploaded, he agreed to it. So I had to like do some post-production to get like the most recent tweet up, but awesome. Thank you everyone who watches, listens, follows us on Twitter. It's been a wild ride, and we can't wait to have this conversation with Brendan. We've been getting a lot of questions though, Rob, about when's it going to happen. Do you want to answer that one for everyone?
Yeah, so we've been talking with Brendan in a Twitter DM, and if you're not familiar, Block.One is actually going to, very soon, it could be next week, they said, but maybe the week after, they're going to release what's known as their EOS.io guidance for public EOS.io blockchains. So basically what that will be different governance proposals, different recommendations for anybody that runs a public blockchain like the EOS mainnet for how to run the chain, how to govern it, all those good things. So once that proposal is out and released by Block.One, then we'll have Brendan on the show to discuss that, answer questions about it, and really dive deep on what that proposal is and what it means for the future of the EOS mainnet. So it should be perfect timing to get a good show out there.
So right after he agreed to do the podcast, it was funny because that night in the EOS version 2 Constitution channel on Telegram, Brendan just showed up. This channel is mostly just like the hardcore EOS people. It was like maybe 119 people in the channel at the time. Yeah. And then Brendan comes in at like 4:00 in the afternoon East Coast time, and he was there for about 6 hours answering all kinds of interesting questions and adding clarity to a lot of the fog and noise that we've been trying to sift through for the last couple of months. It was a breath of fresh air, actually, and I believe at one point Sid, who's pretty well known in the Telegram channels, if you Telegram here, but he was kind of like picking Brendan, and he asked why it took so long to communicate, and Brendan confirmed that they're working to expand their communication teams, and I can confirm that just from like the Block.One careers page that they have like a lot of developer relations positions, communications positions, content writing positions. So they're working on improving their communication, because I think we could all agree here that communication's been lacking for a long time now, and we need some clarity. Yeah, this is a decentralized system, but the people, and there's a lot of independent open source code being written by block producers, independent dApps, companies, but everyone's still looking to Block.One for guidance on this. I mean, Dan Larimer is the one who has built 2 successful scalable blockchains in the past. So it only makes sense that we kind of want to hear what they think about how things are going with like ECAF and governance and voting. So that way, it's not just an echo chamber of us talking to ourselves. It'll be nice to see when they release that statement on public blockchain governance. What are you expecting from it? Do you think it's going to be more than what we're used to? Because they've put out public statements before, and they're just medium posts, pretty brief, maybe a page. Are you expecting something more than that, Rob?
I am, yeah. I'm expecting more of an in-depth sort of governance proposal, and I could be wrong. We're just speculating here, but I'm expecting something that's pretty detailed on, here's the number of active block producers you should have. Here's the incentive structure for those block producers. Here's, what the constitution might look like in your public blockchain. I'm expecting it to be relatively comprehensive to an extent, but I think mostly focused around governance, because those were a lot of the issues that are rising today. A lot of the questions that people have are all around governance. So it only makes sense that proposal that Block.One is putting out would be about governance as well, since that's really the one piece that's sort of up to the community in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm stoked to get to talk to him, pick his brain a little bit on the questions we could ask. But in case anyone from Block.One's listening, we said this last week, but I Google mapped it so I know the exact distance. We are both roughly about 5-hour drive from Blacksburg, Virginia. In the Constitution V2 Telegram channel, Brendan said he's in Virginia right now probably having meetings about this governance discussion.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll still be there next week. We can come on a moment's notice. I mean, I can. Could you?
Oh, yeah. Anytime. Brendan, you just let us know. Anybody at Block One, if you said, hey, come up to the Blacksburg office now, we'll both get in our cars and leave immediately. So
literally, if we get a Twitter message, DM right now saying, can we do this on Monday or tonight? Yeah, we'd be there in I'd be there in 5 hours.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's get into the meat of the discussion now.
Yeah.
So Brendan is proposing 1 token, 1 vote. And that's completely different than what we've had since the mainnet launch. So you want to kind of explain that and give your opinion on it?
Yeah, so in order to understand, the proposed change here, first we got to understand what the current system is. So right now, if you have, 1 EOS token in your wallet, you can vote for up to 30 block producers. And that 1 vote will actually count for all 30. So it's effectively like you can vote that 1 token 30 times and that power doesn't get diluted. Each block producer gets that full 1 vote. But what Brendan is proposing and sort of discussing with the community, and of course, as a preface, the community, the token holders still have to approve any of this through referendum. So it's not like Block One or Brendan or Dan or anybody can sort of, put the hammer down and make this happen. But they definitely do have influence, but just want to put that out there. Still is open to the community. But what they're proposing is that rather than 1 token equaling 30 votes, 1 token would actually equal 1 vote, which means if I have 1 EOS token and I want to vote it towards 1 block producer, they get that 1 vote. But if I have 1 EOS token and I want to vote for 2 block producers, they each get half of an EOS worth of a vote. So the whole point of this is basically to make the EOS mainnet more cartel proof, where right now, and this seems to be sort of a cultural issue, and I apologize to anybody that's Chinese out there if I'm misspeaking. I don't mean to represent all of Chinese culture, but the understanding I've gotten from a few people I've talked to and from Brendan sort of discussing in the Telegram was that in China, with these systems, generally when you have incentive models and a system where you have 30 votes, every block producer, of course, is going to vote for themselves, right? They're going to take that 1 vote for themselves. But because those other 29 votes exist, the culture in China is very much, one of maximalization. They want to maximize the amount that they're going to get out of this system. And it's not, a moral problem. It's just, hey, we're going to maximize what we get out of this. So in the current system, those 29 spots are generally traded away. That results in collusion. They may be sold to other people. Those 29 spots from these BPs that hold a lot of tokens are relatively valuable. So if you immediately remove those 29 other slots that they effectively have for free and instead add a self-debilitating cost to voting for other people and for trading votes with other people, you actually dramatically limit the chance that a cartel would take over and collude and basically run the EOS network themselves. So I personally think it's a good thing, and I'm excited to see how it plays out and see if the EOS community votes it in. But overall, I think 1 token, 1 vote makes a whole lot more sense than 1 token, 30 votes that we have right now.
So it's kind of maybe confusing for people who haven't been following this, but you could still vote for, as far as I know, the max would still be 30, but you could use that 1 token. If you only had 1 token in your wallet, you could actually vote for multiple BPs. It's just that vote power is getting diluted. So instead of every block producer getting 1 vote worth of vote power, whatever you want to call it, if I voted for 10 block producers, they'd all get 10% of a token vote for that 1 token.
Exactly.
So
if you use it with something like, if you say, hey, you have 100 EOS and you vote for 20 block producers, they each get 5 EOS worth of weight because it's all, divided evenly. So that's the biggest change here.
So I was thinking about this. So not so much whether or not I think it's going to work or not, because I'm still undecided on that. I would like to I would see what Block One has to say, and then see what people a lot smarter than me think of, who maybe could model the data and try to get an idea of what to expect from this. But one of the I don't know if it's a weakness. One of the things with the mainnet voting that I didn't like whenever it first launched, that I wasn't expecting, was you can't direct different amount of votes from a single wallet to different block producers. So I'd be curious, let's say I had 100 tokens and I wanted to vote for, I don't want to name too many, and I want to vote for, who should I name?
Cypherglass and somebody, I don't know.
All right, so let's say I have 100 tokens in my scatter wallet, and I want to vote for Cypherglass, EOS Authority, EOS 42, Canada, New York. Who else should I name? Greymass, other cool ones. But let's say I just want to vote for 2 of those, Cypherglass and someone else. And I have 100 tokens. The way this sounds with the 1 token, 1 vote, and how it was on the mainnet is, Rob and whoever the other block producer would get the exact same amount of votes. So with this new one token, one vote system, I'd be curious to see if I could vote with my 100 tokens, but say I want 80% of that vote power to go to Cypherglass and 20% to go to Greymass or whoever else I want to support. Because
Right.
I think that would encourage people to vote for more than one block producer. Because if you're like either self-voting or you just only really care about a couple block producers, but you're considering maybe adding an additional one into the rotation, maybe you could just give them a little bit a sliver of your vote power rather than having to create a new wallet, transfer tokens to that wallet, and vote separately. Because that's
Right.
kind of the workaround currently is you have to split up your tokens in a different wallet. So
Yeah, it's
what are
an
your thoughts on
interesting-
that?
It's an interesting idea. I don't see, why not. And I think if we're going to implement, pretty big change like this to one token, one vote with that referendum, that would be a good time to implement something like this as part of that proposal and say, hey, by the way, if you don't want your vote to be split equally amongst all the BPs, you can determine which percentage. I think it's a great idea and adds just more flexibility and control over the governance process. And I totally agree with you. I think it would help people vote for more BPs without feeling like they're really impacting, the main one they want to vote for, the main few ones they want to vote for. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, being able to do it from one account just removes a lot of friction because use that same example. If I have 100 tokens in my wallet, I can transfer 20 of those tokens to a second wallet and vote for whoever that other BP was with my one token, one vote.
But that's bad UX.
Exactly.
Then you got to keep track of all the different keys, and that's not the way that it should be done. For
exactly. Sure. So that's something I'm hoping we can implement. It sounded like it was the first time you've heard of that. I just kind of thought about it, I don't know, within the last day or two. And it's something I've wanted on the mainnet, even with the voting for 30 BPs. But as far as the impact in the cartel proofing of one token, one vote, would you agree that it'll probably solidify the top, maybe let's say 5 or 6 spots with like the big exchanges and the large token holders? But then it sounds like all of the later spots, let's say like 12 to 21, those ones should see a regular rotation of independent block producers because I think the votes will get rotated better. How do you think it's going to happen?
I think it's, first of all, I should, put a disclaimer that this is very hard to model. It's hard to model this out and figure out exactly what's going to happen. There's so much game theory involved. And when you make a change like this, people are not always going to act the same way just because you implemented a change. And I think the biggest thing that people may not do the same after this change is the big exchanges, the big proxies may actually vote for less people. So right now, for example, Bitfinex is voting for, I think, the full 30 BPs that they can vote for through all of their different proxies, which total, I think, close to 40 million EOS. But of course, Bitfinex is one of the people that they vote for through all of those proxies as well. So the big question that I have is, assuming this change goes through and it is one token, one vote, will Bitfinex continue to vote for all of these other people and still only take 1/30 of their pie? Or will they unvote a bunch of people and only vote for themselves? And I think that'll be really interesting to see, with the proxies, with the big exchanges, with all of these huge holders, are they looking to support the overall network, or are they just in it to vote for themselves? And I think either way is okay. They have the right to vote for whomever they want. But it will be very, very interesting to see if some of those big people, the big proxies, the big exchanges, are they going to vote for the same people, or are they going to trim that down and just vote for themselves? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to watch.
The one token, one vote was the big discussion around Brendan's recent communication storm, let's call it, in the Telegram. But he didn't really talk about the voter rebates too much, has he? Or did I miss something? Because it sounded like he brought up the one token, one vote, and everyone forgot that he said, made a comment about vote buying and voter rebates being good.
I think it's cool. I think it's, if you think about them all at Block One in the Blacksburg office right now, they're talking about this. I'm sure they're talking about other stuff as well, but this seems to be the main topic right now. It seems to me like they were, okay, let's focus on voter rebates. What's our stance there? And then talk with the community. Okay, we sort of got the community's feedback. They sort of know what they want to do. It'll probably just be Rex. Moving on to number 2, it was like, okay, what do we want to do with one token, one vote, one token, 30 votes? Okay, here's the community's feedback. Here's our opinion. And we'll probably see Brendan jump in again, if I had to guess, on some other big issue that they'll include in their governance proposal. He mentioned, he tweeted out, he said, we're all meeting this week. If you guys have something that you want included in this governance proposal, if you have feedback on it, tweet him and let him know. Because I think it is great. Ultimately, it is the community's decision to make these changes, but even so, I think it's great that they're including community feedback in this proposal so that it's more likely to be accepted than, just sort of pushed aside and dismissed.
So let's skip the order of the topics here a bit, because I think it's important to bring up what's going on with Referendum. So none of this stuff that Brendan talks about is going to be implemented on the mainnet unless it gets voter support. But we don't know if it'll have voter support until we get the thing we've been talking about for months now, and that's Referendum. So it sounds like we're like walking to the finish line right now. What is going on with that, Rob?
So there is literally one more proposal that needs to be approved, just one. This proposal was actually already approved once, but there was a minor bug in the code, so it didn't execute properly. So basically, it just has to be approved again by the PPs. So right now at eosauthority.com/approval, if you click on the deploy forum contract, you can see we only need 2 more VPs in the top 21 to vote to approve this for Referendum to be possible. So if you look at this list, there are a couple people in here. Looks like Bitfinex, CoChain, EOS Shenzhen, Huobi, Meet.One, Laomao, Jetta, Stardios, ZBEOS, all these different people that could vote right now and basically make Referendum a reality. So in addition, another way you can help, Cypherglass has already voted to approve since we're number 25. So if we got bumped back into the top 21 before they had the votes, our vote would then count as well. So voting for us or some of these other VPs that are not in the top 21 but have approved it would also help as well. But this is literally the last proposal that needs to go into place to make Referendum a reality. Then we can start proposing things like one token, one vote, and Rex, and all of these other amazing things that are going to happen on chain. So I'm super excited about it. I cannot wait to see what happens because of Referendum and because we're decentralizing that governance out to the broader EOS community.
I just want to give props to EOS Canada. I know there's other block producers that have worked on Referendum, but EOS Canada has been working really hard on it. I stay in touch with Josh. He's their governance and community guy. Awesome work. There's so much thought and development that went into this and making it work. And then there's a bunch of front ends for the voting too. There's at least 3 or 4 that I know of where it's going to be like the user interface for a token holder to come in and see a list of all the Referendum proposals and then vote on them. Those are live now, but they don't really do anything. I think they're either on a test net or just the front end and not even connected to a blockchain.
Yeah.
But a lot of work's gone into this. So we've been like I said, we've been talking about this Referendum for months now. And EOS New York put out a blog post a while ago about how he didn't think block producers should be able to touch network funds. So in EOS New York's blog post, it was speaking about Rex, because I've never met a single community member who was against Rex. So what Rex is going to do is it's going to take in system fees from 3 different sources. One is from the rental and leasing market, which is basically what the Rex is and does. And then the other 2 sources of revenue are going to come from the name auctions, which every day, I believe there's a different account. How would you call it? A suffix, Rob?
Yeah, a suffix. You can bid on shorter account names like .m or .e or .xyz, whatever you wanted. And one can be sold a day, but generally it's about 1 a week gets sold, because it's a bidding process. So whatever the top bid is for that name, let's say it's 10,000 EOS, some of them go to hundreds of thousands of EOS for these names. But if somebody outbids them within that 24-hour period, the 24-hour clock resets. So it's very, very rare that one of these names actually gets registered. And when they do, they're registered for a lot of money. But that's basically how it works. Those fees that people pay to register those names get put in a name fee account, I believe it is, which will then hopefully in the future be redistributed to Rex holders.
So that's a source. I don't know how. I know it got a lot of transaction volume and EOS in the wallet early on when all of the original names like the .coms and the .eoses were being sold, but it doesn't seem like now it's pulling in as much revenue. But that's fine. It's still passive. Am I wrong?
So what's interesting about it is if you don't create your name afterwards, like you can just bid the name, win it, but if you don't create the account, there's really no record of it anywhere, at least not on the traditional name explorer sites. So .jp, for example, for Japan, I assume, just went recently for I think 120,000 EOS, which puts it at the second highest bidded name. The only one other than that was .com, which went for 150,000 EOS that was bought by Stardios. But pretty crazy. The bidding wars are still happening. Obviously, some names are in more high demand than others, but there's definitely still a lot of demand. And I think the total amount of fees from that is now north of 1 million EOS. So it's a pretty huge source of funds. And then of course, the third one would be RAM trading fees as well, which is several million EOS as well. So there's a lot of EOS waiting to be distributed to EOS token holders once this is all live.
Thank you for correcting me. I am not into buying name auctions. I don't think I've ever even looked at it. So yeah, that's the sources for the REX. So all of that, the revenue, 3 revenue streams are going into a pot, and it's going to get distributed amongst all of the token holders who have their REX tokens staked. But because to implement the REX in its full form, which it's ready to do, it's release candidate. Basically, block 1 delivered the code. It doesn't need anything more. But the issue is the block producers, and I believe the majority of at least the ones I stay in touch with, they don't believe that block producers should be able to decide what to do with things like inflation or block rewards or moving funds from one wallet to another. So I believe EOS New York, in their blog, they said, let's implement the REX with just the rental and leasing fees, because this would be a great opportunity to put up the auction fees and the RAM trading fees to a referendum. Because like I said earlier, I have never met a single person who was against the REX and against getting free dividends.
Oh, yeah. Who would say no to a bunch of free EOS coming into their account just for holding EOS? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. So I can't imagine that there will be many people voting against it in referendum. But I mean, I agree with Kevin that anytime any funds are being moved, if there's anything beyond like, creating this EOSIO form account for referendum, for example, if there's anything beyond that touches any funds especially, it really needs to go to a referendum to make sure that, BP power stays in check, that block producers aren't doing anything that the community themselves would not approve.
So the reason I brought up REX is, one, because everyone's just been asking about it, wanting to hear more about it, and know what the latest is. But the reason I brought up REX is because if we're going to take this one token, one vote seriously, we have an untested referendum. So we were planning to use REX, those 2 revenue sources, as the first referendum, because we knew that if we needed to get token holders active and get them out and vote if they weren't voting already to pass a referendum, this would be a great opportunity to do it, because it's basically, do you want to make more money? Okay, then vote. So exactly. With the one token, one vote, though, it sounds like it would be stupid if we're going to consider that seriously and put it up to referendum that we should hold off on the REX. And I don't know if Brendan recommended that or if someone else recommended it. I read it somewhere.
So Brendan recommended, they also recommended a staking time increase. There's a lot of stuff that will probably go in that proposal. And I would guess not all of it will be implemented on the mainnet, but I think, chunks of it will. But it was Brendan, I believe, who said, I can't find the exact quote here, but basically saying, we should vote on the one token, one vote thing first, and then work on all the other referendum issues. So it seems like the REX thing would probably be number 2, but it will be so interesting to see what happens, assuming the one token, one vote actually gets approved on the network and goes into place. The block producer rankings are going to be shaken up for sure, because proxies are probably going to change their votes to some extent. I'm sure exchanges will change their votes to some extent. Users will probably change their votes to some extent. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens and then who the new top 21 is after the fact. But we'll see.
It's really good to hear that the referendum is like one vote away from a top 21 block producer from being implemented, or from being approved to be implemented. The code just needs to get basically deployed at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And as is the case right now, pretty much everything we ever record and say, hey, this is about to happen, it usually happens before the episode goes up. So if you're watching this right now, it may have already been approved and we may be celebrating that referendum is finally here. But either way, 2 more BP votes and we're there. So we're so close.
Let's just record a second take. Yeah, referendum just passed. The last vote just got voted. Yeah.
Looks like referendum is here.
All right, good. Now we won't have to do graphic overlays and screw over the people who only listen on iTunes.
Oh, there you go.
So the one token, one vote going to a referendum. Do you think it's going to pass? Because I think it's going to be easy to get like the general community support as far as like your average people and little maybe baby minnow whales, but like the really, really big whales, like the exchanges, like Bitfinex and Huobi combined for probably close to 100 million tokens. The people who are sharing votes and sharing dividends with each other and doing all kinds of stuff that we speculate, don't know it's true, but we think it's happening. Yeah. Why would they be incentivized to vote this in?
I don't know. It's interesting. The easiest answer, the honest answer is that I don't know. I don't know if this will actually pass or not. However, I think everybody has something to gain within this, right? So if you look at the people that are sort of the cartel right now that are trading votes, that are doing all this stuff, I personally believe that they're here for the betterment of the ecosystem. They want to approve things that are going to make the chain better, going to make more dApp developers build on it, going to make more users use it, going to increase overall the value of the token price, because everybody wins when that happens. But I think this proposal, assuming they, understand what will happen with it, which I think they will. It seems like, Brendan is very well connected in the East and is probably educating these people on this viewpoint. And I'm sure, they said multi-language support is coming with communication. I'm sure they'll blast this out in Chinese and Korean as well. But I think everybody has something to gain, because we look at these past DPoS networks like Lisk and Rise and Arc and all these others that have failed because of cartels or because of direct vote buying, because of all these different things. And we're learning from that now. And I don't think even the people that are sort of benefiting from the current 1 token 30 vote system, I don't think they want to run a network that is cartelized naturally, even if that wasn't their intention. I think they want to run a network that naturally prevents them from having cartels, but still allows them to vote for themselves if that's how they choose. So I think we might be surprised and might actually see a lot of these big whales support this, because they know it'll be a healthier network overall. They know a healthier network will eventually lead to a higher token price, and they're going to be the biggest beneficiaries of that higher token price with the amount of EOS that they're holding. So I think we might be surprised and really get this thing passed sooner than people are thinking. But, there's only one way to find out, and that's to put it to a vote.
I mean, I remember when the mainnet launched and we were waiting for our tokens to get unlocked, because you guys were producing, what was it, even empty blocks? How'd that work whenever we launched? Because we needed to get to 15% of total token holders to vote before you could transfer a token out of your own wallet after the chain went live.
I don't even think it was us. I think it was the ABP, the appointed block producer, who was producing blocks this whole time. Like, one single instance was producing all the voting blocks, or all the voting transactions. And as soon as that was done, it was like, boom, okay, it's online. Now the BPs get all the blocks.
But what happened there is it seemed like the whales came in to make the save. Do you remember just one day, like, millions of votes just came in, and then a week later, Bitfinex allowed people to vote with their proxy while holding tokens on the exchange? So they're not all bad people. Like, they have good intentions.
It's very, very easy, especially when you look at like the sort of previous connotations of the word whale. When people say, "Oh, this whale's dumping on me," like he bought a bunch of my shitcoin and now he's dumping on me. Oh no, like this sucks. Obviously, there are some whales out there that are just trying to very quickly pump and dump or profit or whatever. But I think when it comes to protocols, especially protocols like EOS that are so groundbreaking, so transformative, when you have somebody that has invested that much money and has millions of EOS in this system, those are going to be some of the most committed people. And I think Huobi is a great example of this, right? We may, in the West over here in the English-speaking countries, culturally, we may misunderstand some of the things that they're doing. They sort of see it as maximizing the system and getting as much out of it as possible. But at the same time, if you look at what they're doing by launching an EOS-based exchange, adding EOS as base pair on their exchange, which will do major things to allow EOS to eventually decouple from Bitcoin and decouple from these other assets. My point here is that the big whales, the big players in this ecosystem and in most ecosystems, are generally the ones that are the most incentivized to make it work and are, working on other businesses, running block producers, doing all kinds of stuff to make sure that their investment is secure and is in the long term profitable. So whales aren't always bad. Of course, there are some out there, just like there are some bad small holders as well. They just don't have as much power. But I think it's important to remember most whales are probably good in that they want the network to succeed just as much, if not more, than you do to, pay off their investment.
And if they secretly didn't want it to succeed as far as how we see success, they definitely want the token price to go up. So they're going to do things that they think is going to lead to that result. And if they believe that one token, one result is going to increase the value of the token, but it's going to cost them some of their block rewards maybe, because if they're running secret second block producers, they're not going to maybe get as many anymore if they're self-voting. Right. So they're going to miss out on some of that, but they're going to gain increased token value.
Absolutely.
The other interesting dynamic with this, and it goes back to the Rex. The Rex has a requirement that you can't use it to lease out your own bandwidth unless you're voting for at least 21 different block producers or a single proxy. So that's not going to work if we vote for the one token, one vote first. Do you think that number is going to change, Rob?
I personally think so, yeah. I think it makes a lot more sense when it's one token, one vote system to maybe even just require that you vote for one BP, honestly, to use Rex. I think when you start to require people to vote for a few or 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, not only are you going to have more uninformed decisions where people are just kind of clicking 1 through 21 and hitting vote just so they can use the thing because they don't really care. But I also think it will kind of hurt the smaller holders in a way, because rather than getting 100% of their vote power to the BPs they really care about, now maybe they have to vote for a bunch of BPs that they don't really know about just to use this system. So I'm hoping that that number will get reduced. Of course, that's another thing for the community to decide what they want it at. But I think reducing it all the way down to maybe even 1 would be good for Rex, just so that it's really just a requirement to vote in some way, rather than saying, hey, we want you to vote, but you have to vote in this specific parameter for this many BPs on this date or whatever. Just make it simple, like, hey, in order to use Rex, in order to benefit from it and collect the fees, you have to be an active voter. Whether you're an active voter for 1 BP or 20 BPs or 30 BPs doesn't matter. As long as you're an active voter, you can participate. And I think that's probably the right way to go here.
I disagree. So I think I don't think 21 is going to work. I think 21 is still extremely high for the average person to know 21 reputable block producers to vote for, and 30 was definitely way too high.
Yeah.
But I think it should be somewhere in maybe the 5 to 12 range. And I know that's a pretty big range, but what that forces these whales to do, whether they're good intentioned or not, let's say they are running multiple block producers or just have like backdoor deals. They don't actually own them, but they're getting kickbacks in some way for vote sharing. Now that we switch to 1 token, 1 vote, if we switch to it, they'll have to make a choice. So they could either self-vote for themselves and use their 1 token to just vote for themselves. So the producers might have tens of millions of self-votes, and they could stay in those and solidify those positions, but they're going to be excluded from Rex funds and earning dividends from the network through the Rex unless they dilute their votes. So I think that'll be interesting to see is, would they rather, let's say, dilute their vote to 1/10 by voting for a minimum of 10 block producers? So if they're voting for themselves with those votes, let's say they have 3 or 4 buddies who they self-vote for. Now they're all getting way less vote power. But on the other hand, that person with all those tokens, they're getting these Rex dividends. So it's going to be a trade-off because Rex, as we know it, has these 3 sources of revenue. I'll look at it in a second here, but Brendan said they're working on more stuff that I don't know if it would go into the Rex, but it's going to be value earned through the network, similar to Rex. So the more stuff like that we see, and especially if it goes into Rex, and you have to be in the Rex to get any of this. Like, let's say we have a system-wide DEX, and they implement a trading fee. And that trading fee, as small as it may be, what if that goes into the Rex?
Wow, that would be crazy, wouldn't it? If they put in a B1 DEX that's like the default in their wallet and then all the fees go there, that would be wild. I think to your point on my only concern with requiring people to vote for a minimum number of BPs is that the system can be gamed. Like if I was a whale and I wanted to go in and vote for myself, but then also vote for 4 other people, but I didn't want those votes to go to any other block producers to like sort of keep my competitive advantage, I could just run the reg produce command on 4 random accounts with no EOS in it and vote for those as my other 4 to get to my 5. But to your point, that would also still dilute their vote power. So maybe that is a way to go.
It's very interesting. Like there's hopefully a lot smarter people than me thinking about this.
I'm sure, there's a lot of people
hopefully modeling it out. But like you said, it's really hard to model out because you can't look at the votes today because the incentives are going to change. So it's really hard.
That's the thing that the U.S. government has a lot of problems with. They say like, oh, look, Amazon has 100,000 employees. If we could get another $100 per month from all these employees that work 40 or more hours a week, we could make a bunch of money. So they put a law into effect. But then Amazon isn't just going to keep those employees. They instead go, oh, we'll cut everybody back by an hour a week to 39, remove their benefits, make them part-time so they don't have to pay the fee. So my point there is anytime a change is made, people are not going to behave the exact same way. They're going to try to skirt around it or maybe mitigate it in some way. So the more that can be modeled, the better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's really no way to know until it's pushed live. So it's going to be fascinating to see this all unfold.
This conversation we've been having back and forth, if I did describe it in a few words, checks and balances.
Yes, absolutely.
It's trade-offs that are decisions that are going to have to be made because there's going to be trade-offs on how you're going to earn revenue through the network. And I found Brendan's quote. So it's in the V2 channel. He said, Rex has functions beyond increasing voter turnout. We plan to drive value to voters in other ways than just renting computational resources.
Wow.
So
one of the I got to say something that goes along with that. I don't have the exact verbatim quote in front of me, but Brendan basically said something to the effect of he will always prioritize the EOS token holder. And I thought that was very cool. That's something that I think nobody from Block One has ever really said explicitly. Yeah. So that was good, I'm sure, for not just myself, but for many, many other people to read and go, okay, wow. Of course the incentives are aligned. They have 10% of the tokens, but it's always nice to hear them say it and just kind of put that out there again.
So I think we've been talking about whales and self-voting and exchanges. I recently watched some older videos of things that Dan said back in like the spring and the winter before the mainnet launch. And some of the things he was teasing back then, which were probably still already being developed back then, are kind of making more sense now. He actually predicted that a lot of these block producers were going to be the large entity, like big dApps and like the large entity. Let me just play the clip.
Yeah.
Bam.
So when you envision EOS running, what kind of organizations and companies will be these block producers? When you discuss the future of EOS, is it huge data centers? Are you talking to universities? Are you talking to corporations already who might be interested? Or do you just leave it openly to the community and we will just have to see who takes these positions?
We're leaving it open to the community, although we have had lots of people reach out to us and express interest in doing it, including major cryptocurrency exchanges, people running block explorers, people are running dApps. We've got universities and the like that have expressed interest. Small countries might be interested. So anyone who's got a lot of trust already, who's already has another reason for running a validated node. Exchanges are already having to validate the full blocks if they want to run a full node. So there's no additional cost for them to be a block producer if you're already running a full node. So what you'll probably end up seeing is those who provide the biggest applications on the platform will end up being the block producers. So the Steemits, the Augurs, the Bancors of the protocol are going to be the block producers.
Wow, he was pretty spot on with that. It's kind of crazy. I think it makes sense. He obviously was working with some of these BPs, I'm sure, like Bitfinex, who's an investor in Block One. Maybe they knew that they were going to run a BP and he kind of went along with that, but he definitely got that right. It's kind of impressive to see, even at, what was that, 6 months, a year before the mainnet launch when that was recorded.
Did you hear the one word that he said of types of companies or people he was talking to? Universities. Imagine if a university decided to launch a node. I'm here in Pittsburgh, one of the top computer science and robotics schools in the world. What if they launched a BP? What if Virginia Tech launched a BP? And it wouldn't necessarily even need to be mainnet. If we're going to have this 1,000 chains like future, these system resources could be distributed over each chain with different BPs. Like there's a huge opportunity because constantly a block producer is campaigning on the value that they add back into the network. Imagine a university saying these block rewards are going to fund our curriculum we're developing. We're going to start an incubator out of our university. So our grad school students, when they graduate, they're going to continue working on these projects to make them profitable, to add value back into the network through some sort of dividend function. I don't know. But the possibility of that's insane to me. But as far as I know, no one's like stepped up and made a public announcement from a university, as far as I know. Is that true on your end too?
Yeah, I believe that's true. I would expect, well, at least in terms of BPs, there have not been any universities that came out and said they're going to be BP yet, but I would not be surprised to see that. And I honestly think over the next few years, as EOS becomes more legitimate, as big companies are building on top of it, I think we're going to see some even bigger players join the BP race as well. We could see a Facebook or a Twitter or, some other huge company come out and say, hey, we're launching a block producer on EOS. Here's why. Maybe it's on their own sidechain. Maybe it's on the mainnet. Maybe it's on both. But I think over time, definitely, we're going to see more and more established sort of, they're not really incumbents in that the BPs in the existing space already exist, but maybe they're an incumbent in their field, like a Facebook is an incumbent in the social media space. They may run a BP at some point. And I kind of expect to see that at some point in the future. I would definitely prefer that they be universities, I think, over giant companies like Facebook, but there's no way for me to prevent that one way or another. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up running.
Imagine I don't remember the university. Was it MIT where they were investing some of their endowment fund into like Bitcoin?
I'm not sure.
I mean,
no, that was Yale actually. A percentage of some I think one of their endowment funds actually was diversified into Bitcoin and other cryptos. So that was pretty cool to see. It's like the first Anthony Pompliano at Pomp on, or at A Pompliano on Twitter. Anyway, you'll find him. But he was tweeting about that, saying like, oh, we got another one off zero. And he's really big about pushing giant institutions, giant funds, whoever it is that has a bunch of money, pushing them to get off zero. I've been trying to get my mom off zero and, take 0.5% of whatever her retirement money is and put it into crypto just in case. So I think more and more people will see get off zero in the future and sort of follow Yale's lead.
So I think we should try to wrap up the Bloomer stuff. We've been recording for almost 40 minutes now. I don't know if it'll be on the actual final product, but UBI and ECAF. Brendan made specific comments. So there's been a lot of debate about ECAF. We're not going to rehash that one. Most block producers are against it, but it is in the temporary constitution. But someone asked Brendan in the channel about the WPS, because that's something that's been dropped for a while now too. And he basically said worker proposals aren't going to come, and if they do come, they won't be base layer. And he said ECAF absolutely has to go. So I believe that's the first official statement from Block One saying that. But anyway, not so much about worker proposal, but the thing that got me absolutely excited is my cat just jumped up. I'm gonna have to leave that in there. I have like this little cat door at the top of my steps at the door, and my cat like bullied through. Like I have to put a bunch of weights and stuff in front of it so it blocks it. I duct taped it. Cat.
See, I gave up on that long ago. I let the cats roam. You see them come in and like whatever. Like just let them be,
But from cats to UBI, that's what I was about to say. UBI, it's back, everybody. Brendan said, quote, if you're listening, UBI will become the #1 customer acquisition strategy in the world, and every new business should be looking into it. And he specified, but again, it's not a base layer. So I think this is like a Steam 2.0 type of thing, because your identity is your social network. You don't need a government ID to prove you are who you say you are, because the people around you in your network say you are who you say you are. It's your whole history and reputation behind it. So that's really cool. Because what are your thoughts recently on URI and UBI? For a while, you were
I think
opposed.
So I'm against, like, I don't know. I'm partially against it in some ways, like the concept of giving people free money. However, as a customer acquisition strategy, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I also, after I've been thinking about it for a couple of days, I agree that it's not a base layer feature. If you think about EOS itself as a protocol, that should really be stripped down as much as possible. And anything experimental, like, say, a worker proposal system, should really be abstracted out to the dApp layer or some other layer. And if you think about it, that makes sense for EOS token holders too as well. Where instead of having to, instead of having no choice on the inflation and just saying, oh, wow, 4% I'm getting inflated every year for this experimental worker proposal system, you could do that, or I guess in this case it would be UBI. You could do that at the dApp layer for a customer acquisition strategy where, maybe Steam 2.0 has a little bit of extra inflation and they use that as a yearly UBI to pay the most active contributors on the website or something to that effect. So I think it makes sense. I'm like warming up a little bit to the UBI idea. I still am not a huge fan of giving people stuff for free with no effort, but I think if it's aligned with you using a dApp kind of as a reward, or like, hey, sign up and you'll get UBI for a month or whatever, that I think makes a lot more sense because you have to add some kind of value to whatever network you're taking a piece from.
Goes back to the model we've talked about earlier. If you want free money, vote for the Rex. Right. We talked about Peter Thiel and how he got PayPal off the ground. They gave away you got an email that said, hey, you have $10 sitting in your account. All you have to do is come and sign up and you could take it.
So obviously, tons of stuff has happened. We've seen tons of action from Brendan in the Telegram. I'm sure that will probably continue as he gets some more free time. He'll hop in, maybe talk about the next issue. And of course, we cannot wait to see that proposal, hopefully next week, of their guidance on public blockchains. And then, of course, we'll have him on the Everything EOS podcast as well. But moving on, we have some pretty exciting stuff happening this week. First, it looks like we got a couple of announcements from EOS New York. You want to talk about that a little bit?
The announcement they made over the weekend or on Monday was a new wallet being teased. So it says, they tweeted, the EOS blockchain boasts dApps with the best user experience, so it should have a hardware wallet to match. The Metro is your pass to the world of EOS. Stay tuned to grab your reservation. If you're watching, I'll just post the tweet, but it's the world's first EOS hardware wallet built for dApps. Now, that's basically all Kevin would tell me personally, too. Do you know anything more on that you're able to talk about publicly?
I don't.
You know?
So I've been bugging Kevin, like, please, Kevin, send me a photo. Like, he said they have a prototype and they did a production run or something. So I was like, send me a photo, please. Like, I don't know what it is. At first, I was speculating maybe it's like an actual, similar to a Metro card you get when you go on the subway that has NFC in it. And he said, no, there's no NFC. That's not how it's going to work. So I was like, okay, then what is it? Like, is it going to be like a ledger with a screen that you plug into your device? Is it going to be something that integrates with your phone? Like, I have no idea, but it sounds like it's actually a physical wallet. Like, there's some physical component that you'll have to buy, which is why they're going to production with it, why they have a prototype. But Kevin, please give us a photo, please.
Yeah,
we just want to see what it looks like.
So that was the first announcement. The second announcement, I think, most likely ties into the wallet, but they built something called the Transit API, which Transit Metro. And basically, it's an API that allows a dApp developer to interface with all of the independent wallets being built. You want to explain the issue with developers currently, Rob?
Yeah. So we're going through this right now. We've been working on sort of a stealth dApp that will be launching at some point in January, maybe the next week or two. And we've been running through the same issue where everybody has a slightly different way to integrate. You know, Scatter has one way to integrate, Meet.One has another, EOS Links has another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what EOS New York is trying to do is basically combine all of the wallet integrations into one simple Transit API. So as a dApp developer, instead of having to spend, 30 minutes with each wallet integration, setting it up and making sure my contract works with it, I can just integrate the Transit API once and it will work with all of these wallets. So we were going to use this initially actually with our dApp, but it looks like full support for all of these wallets won't be out for another 3 weeks or so. So once that's out, we'll definitely switch to Transit, but right now we're still, going the manual route. But this is something that's definitely needed and will make not only dApp developers' lives easier, but it will make users' lives a lot easier as well, because more dApps should support more wallets. So regardless of which EOS wallet you're using, it should be super easy to log into a dApp and start using it. So I'm excited. I'm more excited about the Transit API than the wallet, to be honest with you.
I think they go hand in hand, but I'm sure they have a publicity release schedule. So maybe by next week we'll have some answers.
Hopefully.
So as far as you know, I know you're not a developer, but you work with them very frequently. Is implementing this API something that's fairly simple for someone who maybe, if let's say there's 10 wallets and they're only integrated with 3, but they want to be integrated with all 10. If they wanted to switch over their code to this API, is it something that would be low overhead, you think?
It should be relatively easy. It's basically the same amount of time. Right now, you're with those 10 wallets, you would spend, roughly 30 minutes each, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on the one, to integrate that API for each individual wallet. But instead, now you'll just be able to integrate one. So, before where you would have had to spend, say, 5 hours integrating 10, you can now spend 30 minutes and implement all of them. So it should be pretty cool and cut down on development time for everybody. And this is what I love to see happening in EOS that I really wanted to see when I was a part of the Ethereum community, where Ethereum, they kind of give you nothing. It's just bare bones. You have to build everything yourself. You have to build the data storage yourself. You have to build the integration yourself. And on EOS, it's kind of going the other way of making it as easy as possible to build. Things like pixEOS, which the testnet actually just got stood up, I believe 2 days ago. So congrats to the pixEOS people. We're super excited to be a part of that and have our nodes stood up as well. But pixEOS, for example, super easy way for people to store data securely and privately on EOS. Now, Transit, boom, super easy way, takes 30 minutes to install, maybe less, to get your dApp integrated with all the wallets. And we're going to see more and more of this standardization that makes it so easy to build on EOS that more and more developers are inevitably going to move over. So I like what I'm seeing. I like the trend that's happening here. Let's keep it going. Let's keep this thing chugging along.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool. Before we wrap up on it, I think the big value add will be as new wallets were to come out, or if wallets were to change, the team developing the dApp doesn't have to worry about that stuff. A brand new wallet could come out, and as long as this API kept up with them quickly, then you wouldn't have to change any of your code if you're building a dApp.
Absolutely. Yeah. So moving on, obviously we love talking about games. We're both big gamers here. Myself, I've sunk, more days than I'd like to admit into World of Warcraft. But we have so many games coming out on EOS.
Could I interrupt you for a second? So last week on the episode, we talked about Azorus and the Twitch streaming. So I got this message on Twitter from BitJoy, I think. I'm not exactly sure what they do off the top of my head, but he said something would turn me into a Twitch streamer. And I said, no one wants to see me get wrecked at video games by kids like half my age. What do you think? So I finally, let me see if I got it near me. 1 second.
Uh-oh, here we go. What's he going to unveil right here on Everything EOS episode 43? What is it? Oh, the Switch! The Nintendo Switch, ladies and gentlemen.
So Rob, you're a Super Smash Brother player, aren't you? Just came out about a month ago.
Oh yeah, the new Smash is awesome.
My first game I bought. If anyone in the EOS community wants to play Smash, I think Rob would be down for having an 8-person melee with anyone in the community at any time. And if I could figure out how to do it, maybe we could live stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely beta test some of these tools coming out. So if anyone is building that stuff, reach out.
BitJoy, to your point, I think is also kind of building those integrations. That was the thing we talked about last week, more of like, the viewers sort of helping the streamer, like a bunch of people sending a bunch of tokens to power up a sword or unlock a new move or something like that. Whereas the Azarus stuff we were looking at was more the viewers playing a game alongside the streamer and sort of being rewarded for paying attention and being engaged. So a little bit different concepts, but both kind of, in the streaming world, which is pretty interesting. And obviously when it comes to any of these new integrations, whether it's the stuff like Azarus or BitJoy, they're making it easy to use these applications. For example, if you already have a Twitch account with Azarus, you can just use the game. You type in Twitch chat to launch it. You get the survey, you answer the questions correctly, you win some tokens. And I think that's going to be a pretty important trend in onboarding more and more people. Obviously, we have Mythical Games coming out with Blankos that should make that onboarding process pretty easy. But the biggest one that we've seen so far is ITAM Games, ITAM, who's launching on the EOS mainnet with a pretty cool account structure. You want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, they were. Someone was asking about them. I think Elam Her was in our channel, and he shared a tweet that they made that I don't think either of us were aware of until he posted it. But ITAM Games, they tweeted, we've talked about them before. We will release about 20 games, including Gangster Arena 20.
Oh
20, including Gangster Arena, which I don't know what Gangster Arena is, but 20 games, all being built on EOS. So this is like a serious game studio. And then we've talked about Mythical Games, all those Activision guys, Blizzard guys, they're building on it. And going back to Blankos and Mythical Games and onboarding new users, I read an interview with the CEO, John Linden of Mythical Games, and he said the thing he's most excited about in blockchain-based gaming is that none of these games have the word crypto or blockchain in them.
Yeah, absolutely. People don't even need to know. I mean, it's just a better system. Now you can own your item, you can sell your item depending on the game. So I don't think they need to know either. It's perfect.
So since it was so long ago and we explained the account structure of ITAM Games at the time, basically they have different account levels. So if you just want to try a game out, like a freemium game, you don't even have to create an account. It's like a guest login. You could just play as a guest. You're not going to be able to save anything. You're not going to be able to earn any of the currencies in the game if there's one. But you could at least try it out. And if it's like let's say a fighting game, an RPG game, you could at least see if you like the graphics or you like the feel of the game.
Right.
But there's this middle tier, which is your user who's willing to sign up. Just like if you're checking out on an e-commerce store, you could check out as a guest. That's fine, but you can't go in and look at your order history ever. So that kind of sucks if you want to go back and look at that. But then there's the middle tier, which you create an account, probably just like you'd create an Amazon account. But then the final tier would be owning your own keys, which is like their top tier level. And the reason I brought this up again after not really talking about it much for a few months is EOS Bet is actually, they put out a blog. So EOS Bet, they're one of the top casinos with EOS Dice. What are the other big ones, Rob? I don't really get into those.
Dice, EOS Max, I own a little bit of both of those. I own more Dice than Max. Max I got because they're launching Monopoly soon, and I just want some exposure to a blockchainopoly. I hope it's good. We'll see. EOS Bet, of course, there are a bunch of them now. If you go to dappradar.com/EOS-dapps, you can check it out.
Bet was one of the first ones I played because they had the links integration. So I actually have more experience with them than anyone else, and I've probably played maybe 20 to maybe 50 rolls. We'll see. I don't know what my history is. Anyway, I'd have to check rolls. A block. I'm not, no way. I'm not Q. Q probably already gambled away all those 1,000 EOS.
Oh no, I hope not.
But anyway. Going back to Dice, I just want to mention they're releasing Texas Hold'em in February. I'm super stoked for that. That's like the one gambling game I will play because it brings back like old memories from back when World Series of Poker was huge in Texas Hold'em in like the early 2000s. mid 2000s.
Well, I used to play way back in the day. This was many, many years ago on an old Bitcoin casino where you still had to deposit your Bitcoin into the system and like wait a little while and then you could use it. But I remember playing free games and like occasionally placing, which was pretty fun. So I'll hop in a Texas Hold'em game with you as well. We may have to schedule like an everything EOS table or something and we can all hop in it and play against each other.
That brings up a good point. Peer-to-peer gaming is coming to fruition. There's already a few of the online casinos that have peer versus peer games. I haven't played any of them personally, but I hear people raving about them in our channels. But that's something that for the longest time, it was just dice. Like dice doesn't interest me. I'm basically, it's a game of chance to double my money and I'm probably going to get wrecked and lose. But I don't mind if I lose if I'm playing against other people and get to talk shit and stuff. Like that's what gaming is. It's the social interaction that drives me in. So I'm pumped for the Texas Hold'em. I will accept your challenge if you want to play. So circling back after me getting sidetracked a million times, back to EOS Bet. So they put out a blog article recently where they launched a new account system that enables users to deposit funds from any source and easily bet without the use of a wallet or scatter. So what do you think of that? Because how do you deposit funds if you don't have a wallet or scatter? I'm a bit confused on that. But they basically built They basically.
If you look at dice, they do the same thing for blackjack. Just because of the way that the transactions are settled, they require you to deposit just for the blackjack game, and then you're not using CPU or anything. But you need scatter obviously in a wallet to get the funds in. So I don't know. That's sort of the missing piece here.
So it continues. Players never have to worry about their own resource costs like CPU, net, or RAM again, since they're all covered by us, the casino. Best yet, this account system is still decentralized and non-custodial. You always maintain complete control of your funds. So basically, they piqued my interest. I want to know more. I can't really dig any deeper into that without knowing more of the details. But that seems to be the direction that everyone's going right now, is trying to remove all of the friction from onboarding new users. Because without that, we're not going to ever see a mainstream adoption. Like, we are the only people who are ever going to play these type of games because we're already into crypto. But how do you get someone like your mom or your aunt into the game? They have to just be able to log in, click a button, and start playing. And if they like it, maybe they could dig a little deeper.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about this. It says, we've built this system with the average non-techie gambler in mind. Players sign up with 2 clicks. So if they can truly make it that easy, and then also somehow get people's money into the system, because obviously they need money to play the game and to bet. The 2 clicks to sign up sounds amazing, but if they can figure out the funding of it all, then this could be huge in terms of mainstream adoption. Absolutely.
I mean, maybe, I don't know how it would work because it could be manipulated, but maybe you could earn some bet tokens or something through some freemium model. Maybe you could play these free games and earn like very tiny amounts of bet. I don't know.
Maybe,
we will see. We covered all the games I mentioned in the notes. Is there any other games that you've heard of recently or played recently that you're excited about?
I'm just excited to see what ITAM is building. To your point, that Gangster Arena or whatever it was called, it's some kind of PvP game. I looked at the trailer very, very briefly. It looked like 6v6 arena, and you're like, the view is from above looking down on the players, and you like run around hitting people and killing them. It should be fun. So I'm just excited to see all the different games, to play them all. Can't wait to fill up my iPhone home screen with all the different EOS games in 2019.
How's EOS Knights been treating you?
Good, really good. I'm still in the top 100 leaderboard, so I think I've kind of secured my position. I was in the top 50 for a while, got knocked out a little bit, but now I'm in there, and I think I'm improving over. I'm improving at a steady enough rate that I think I can stay in the top 100. But it's been awesome. Dungeons are a ton of fun. A lot of people who don't like EOS Knights didn't like it because it was passive gameplay, right? You kind of, spec out your knights, you craft them some more armor, all that's active. But when they're actually fighting, it's all passive. You just let them do it on their own. But with dungeons, it's all active. Like, you have to choose which spells to use, who you want to attack. It's a turn-based sort of dungeon raid style. So I think it's pretty cool, and I've been having a lot of fun with the dungeons. But they got more stuff coming as well.
I forget the acronym for the genre you really like. MMORG, is that what it is?
But yeah, MMORPG, massive multiplayer online and role-playing game, like a World of Warcraft. They're really, MMOs in general are pretty much dead. Like, not dead from the point that there's not people who want to play them. There are tons of people who want to play MMOs, but so many MMOs that exist today, like World of Warcraft, have really been gutted. Like, the original development teams aren't there anymore. They're really going with in-app transactions as the model, trying to sell people as many digital goods as possible, which I don't have a problem with. But when they focus on that instead of focusing on real content in the game, it kind of sucks. So I think people, the MMO community in general, which is over 100 million people, all of these people are waiting for something that's a good MMO that focuses on the content, but it also limits the control of the developers in some way. And that is where I think a blockchain MMO could do really, really well. Asteroid Rush is actually one that just popped in my head. Asteroid Rush is building an MMO on EOS. So that should be pretty exciting to see. And, you can go out and mine asteroids in space. Not a lot of details out yet, but my point is when one of those MMOs comes out that's not only a good MMO, but also gives more control back to the players so that they don't get screwed over again like they have in every other MMO they've played, that is going to be the MMO that finally dethrones World of Warcraft as the most played.
Exciting times, man. I maybe I'll get into my first one. I got into Warcraft before World of Warcraft. So I used to play Warcraft 2.
Oh, okay. The
Warcraft,
old RTS games.
Yeah, I mean, it was an older game whenever I was playing it too. I think it came out in like 95. I was probably playing it in like the early 2000s. And I played Warcraft 3, but those are completely different than World of Warcraft. I've never even played World of Warcraft or anything like that.
Yeah, same kind of lore. Like, they start out orcs and humans, but World of Warcraft is totally different in every aspect of the game. Like, it's a third-person MMO versus an RTS, real-time strategy. Totally different.
Gotcha. So we've been talking for about an hour now. We went a little long on the Bloomer stuff, but we did miss one piece of news in our notes, and that is the first EOS mainnet sidechain has been announced. So you want to talk about what Meet.One had to say with their sidechain?
Yeah, so Meet.One has come out. They said they're launching a sidechain that will hopefully use the same block producers as the mainnet. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works. But what's interesting about this sidechain is it's a true sidechain in the sense that, you don't have to make a new account to use the sidechain. You can use your same EOS mainnet account. You can use your same EOS tokens to get resources on the sidechain. So it's truly a way to make the EOS mainnet itself more scalable by just kind of, adding on a little extension. So I'm excited to see what happens with it. They say they have the .m suffix so that people can register .m for Meet.One, names and then go.
So that ties into the name auction stuff we talked about earlier. So that means they bought the .m in the name auction, and that fee would have went to the Rex if the Rex was ready. It's still in the account.
Exactly.
That's actually interesting that they bought the .m just for their own user accounts. Do you see that being a trend? Is dApps are just going to have a .something and then they're just going to have their own user accounts based on that, and that's the only way you can get it?
If you think a lot of these dApps, for example, EOS Nights is integrating a Facebook login where you can log in with Facebook and they'll just give you a free EOS account to do that. Dice is an example of a dApp that just recently came out, and if I didn't disclose it earlier, I have to disclose I own Dice tokens. But they're coming out with .dice. So you'll be able to go onto the Dice website or somewhere else and register a .dice name. So if you wanted Zack.dice or I wanted Rob.dice, I can do that. And I think it makes sense, if Dice is then giving out free accounts, it only makes sense for them to get some brand recognition out of it and give away free .dice accounts so that people know, Dice gave you that account.
I forgot about one of the games I'm excited for, and I must disclose that I did buy the tokens. pixEOS, man.
Oh, yeah.
So I will give you the advice. Since I own the tokens, I want to disclose this. Don't buy the token because it's terrible. It's going to go to zero. So that should cover me legally. But I did buy into the pre-sale. So I couldn't ignore it any longer. Everyone I talked to on Telegram had those damn pixelated 8-bit
it's a movement,
images.
Man.
It's a movement, man.
100%. And if you think there's so many artists around the world that are in pixEOS and it's just growing by the day. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you probably know more about it than me, but the auction house sounds really cool. The non-fungible tokens sound cool. It's not just one thing. It's not just like a Pixel Masters, because I never got into the Pixel Masters. One, because I didn't really pay attention to it till midway through, and I didn't want to get wrecked. But the other thing is it was just one thing. It was very niche. It was cool at the time, but then the canvas ended and it kind of just died. Whereas with this, every time the canvas ends, it starts a new one. But there's so much other cool stuff.
It's so much more than just another pixel game. It's similar to Pixel Master in a lot of ways, but has a lot of the token economics of Dice kind of thrown onto it. But they also have things like an NFT auction house. They're coming out with a non-fungible token NFT standard so that artists can, register their works, whether it's physical artwork or digital artwork. They can register the provenance, prove, hey, I made this thing. Hey, now it got tracked here. And a good example I saw that Fred gave recently on actually the Roundtable podcast
that was a good one.
It was pretty good. Talking about how, if the Mona Lisa way back in the day, the person who originally painted it, if that was on the blockchain, you could track the provenance as it sort of changed hands over the years, and then you don't have to rely on an auction house to 99% guarantee the provenance and then later tell you that they messed up and that it's actually a fake that you bought. NFTs in the art world are something that are really necessary, and I'm more excited about that part of pixEOS than I think anything else. But of course, the game I am super excited to play as well.
All right, so we're well over an hour now, maybe. Depends on how far I edit this down. Is there anything else that you thought was important to cover that we haven't talked about yet?
I think the only other thing, as part of us as Cypherglass reinvesting into the network, it goes along with pixEOS. We announced today on Twitter that the partners at Cypherglass have invested nearly 35,000 EOS into the pixEOS platform to help it launch, help them get going. So we're super excited to be supporting that project, and this will not be the last funding announcement that we have. So we just encourage more people, like we encouraged today on Twitter, to vote for the block producers that are really reinvesting in the network, whether that's dApps or infrastructure or sidechains or whatever, rather than the BPs that aren't doing as much. So that'll be my last 2 cents of the evening.
I invested into that same network this morning. Rob, did you see my Jiffy meme?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it was a good GIF. It was very good with our heads exploding and pixEOS logo. If you haven't seen that, hop into the Everything EOS Telegram at t.me/everything_EOS. You can pick up that GIF and add it to your satchel there in Telegram.
You act like it's not on the screen as you're talking about it right now.
That's true. By the way, we did want to give a huge shout out to another content creator, Ash Oro, who also runs the Freedom Proxy. He just launched EOS.radio or EOS Radio. They're doing some pretty cool podcasts over there. It's a little bit of a different format than we do here, where they bring a bunch of people on Skype, they talk about an issue, and recently they just had the Chintai team on talking about the Checks token. So highly recommend you check out that interview. It was a very good one.
Yeah, I have yet to watch it yet. I just read Ash's comments on it. I saw on Twitter that they started their own Telegram group too. We must have started a trend for podcasts. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like we're the first ones to do it. But
yeah.
What?
I was going to say, I think it's a great thing. People have asked me before, what do you think? Like other people starting podcasts. I think it's awesome. The more and more people that we have on YouTube, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, wherever, talking about EOS, the better. So we're not here trying to be the only EOS podcast. Yes, we are the longest running EOS podcast, in our opinion, the best
the longest
EOS podcast,
and strongest. I like that.
Oh,
someone said it on Twitter, the longest and strongest.
That's good. But we're here for all the content creators. So Ash, huge congrats on new EOS Radio. We hope beyond the Checks interview that you have a lot of other good content coming as well. So super excited.
Yep. And like I said, they started their own Telegram channel. So find Ash on Twitter or probably checking the links down below. Join their Telegram channel. Hopefully it becomes just as active as ours has been. Also join our Telegram channel, especially before you join anyone else's. t.me/everything_EOS. It's the most poppin' place. I think we just broke like 700 members, something crazy.
That's
so
wild.
we appreciate everyone's support. Like I'm glad other people are creating content because this is the most fun thing to do ever, is sharing like this story for so many industries like just on the cusp of being disrupted, and we get to tell that story and bring people into our world. And it's been an amazing ride. We'll have to celebrate soon. We're almost at 1 year, probably in a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, 1 year of the podcast. That's right. Mm-hmm. We'll have to do a 1 year special and look back or something. We'll see what we can come up with.
I can't wait. I think that's a good spot to wrap up, though, Rob.
I think that's it.
All right. Once again, I'm Zack Gall.
I'm Rob Finch.
And this is Everything EOS.
Dun, dun, dun. Go EOS!